Hello everybody, welcome back to Tiny Man Time. My name's Hunter, and today on Square Zero we're going to talk about base coating your model. And the model I have for demonstration is going to be this guy right here. This is an old school Warrior of Chaos from around 2009, 2010. And you'll see I've already got him primed here with some Corax White from Citadel. And so we're going to talk about color selection real quick, and then I'll get right into the base coating process for you. All right, let's jump into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little look at this model and decide, at a glance, what all kind of colors we want to work with here. And we're going to work with a pretty limited palette. So we've got armor plates, right? We've got a sword, a shield, we've got some fur and a cape, and there's some bones, like some horns, some bones. There's a little skull on his chest. So I think we can come up with a pretty good handful of colors that we can use to paint this guy. Because I know not everybody who is just starting out in the hobby is going to have, dozens and dozens of colors to choose from. So let's do something pretty simple, and let's pick out some great colors that we can use to make this guy look good with what we have on hand. We have Lead Belcher for metallics. This is just like a steel color. Okay. We've got brown, Rhinox Hide for the leather. It's a dark brown. We're going to use Steel Legion Drab for the fur. We're going to use Ushabti Bone, unsurprisingly, for the bone and the horns. We're going to use Mephiston Red, this one red color, for all the armor, and we're going to get a surprising amount of depth out of this and just the other colors we have here on the table. And then we're going to use Nuln Oil and Agrex Earth Shades for our washes. I highly recommend, if you don't have any washes and you only can afford a couple right now, get these two. With just these two, or even just this one, but with just these two you can accomplish an awful lot. Okay, so we've got our paints, we've got our model, we've got our wet palette here. Let's get started. Okay, now unfortunately, for the sake of brevity, we're only going to do two pieces of this model. We're going to do the cape so I can demonstrate how to base coat a color, and then we're going to do probably the sword or the shield, maybe both, to demonstrate how to do metallics, since they each paint a little bit differently. Okay, let's set down our model, and let's pick up first. Let's get the brown we're going to use for the leather of the cape. Give it a good shake, and you don't have to give this a primer level shake, but you definitely want to get it mixed up, especially if it's your first time using it. You want to make sure you get everything in there mixed up really, really well. Okay, and let's put down, a fair amount of this onto the palette here. We can have plenty left over. And if you're using something other than Citadel, just give it a good squirt, because not everybody uses these little pots. Some people use dropper bottles. Okay, and we're going to mix in some water, get our paint nice and thin. There we go. That looks good and paintable right there. Okay, so we're going to do everything up to the fur on this cloak here, all right? Now watch me real quick. We're going to start on the edge of the model, and as we paint, we're going to do what is called following the wet edge of the model. And this is not a term that I've invented or anything. I've heard this from other people before. And basically it just means you don't want to come back and paint over something you've already painted, because acrylic paints tend to dry pretty quickly, and if you try and paint over an area that you've already started, sometimes there'll be a thin skin of dried paint over there, and you're touching it with your brush can break it. So you just want to follow the wet edge, keep it going, and it doesn't matter if you don't do a perfect job or if your paint is too thin, because we are going to do the too thin coats method. If any of you are familiar with the name Duncan Rhodes, he's the one that has kind of memed that phrase into mini painting canon for everybody. But once this is dry, it should still need another coat to get good solid coverage. We're going to do the outside, we're going to do the inside. And something I see a lot of beginner miniature painters do is they worry a lot about their first color that they put on. So we're putting this brown on, and I want you to notice we're getting it on the armor that we're going to be painting red. And we're getting it on areas that we're going to be painting bone color, like these skulls. Don't worry too much about that, because we're going to be coming back and painting over those anyway. So you don't have to be really tidy with the very, very first color that you put on, because everything is going to get painted in the end. So it's okay if you're a little bit sloppy with it, as long as you're getting that base coat taken care of. Okay? So that's what your first coat's going to look like, and you can kind of see over here to the left it's drying, and you can still see, you know, it's not completely covering it. You can still see the primer showing through. Okay? So while that dries, we're going to start work on the shield here. Okay, same thing with our lead belcher. We're going to give it a nice shake. There we go. All right, now let's get some of this out on the palette, and I'm just going to get a big old scoop. Put it right over here next to our brown. Now the main thing I want to talk to you about with this metallic paint, and the big difference between it and the brown paint, is that you are not going to thin this with water. In fact, a lot of the time, you're not going to thin your metallic paint at all. It's going to come out of the pot ready to use. If you do thin it with water, it will get messed up. If you have to thin it with something, a medium is preferred. Games Workshop does make a medium for thinning paints down and making glazes. Oh, look at that. We got a little bit of brown. Yeah, we got a little bit of brown on our shield, but that's okay. We're not going to worry about it because we can come back in and paint right over it. But for right now, we're just going to paint this shield up. And you can see I'm not being very careful here. I'm just coming in, throwing some paint down. Base coating is your very first brushing step. And it is completely expected to need to come back and fix things up, especially if you're new to the hobby. You know, and you're not going to be perfectly neat and tidy with everything. I've been doing this for about 10 years, maybe a little bit more now. I guess it's probably closer to 11, and I still am constantly coming back and cleaning up after myself. Everybody does it, so don't worry too much about how crisp your lines are when you first start, because it's not that big of a deal. And you can see this is usually enough coverage in a single coat for metallics. Sometimes you'll need two. I find that when I prime black, I need two more often than not. With a lot of these lighter colors, one coat will get it done. Don't be afraid to put two on there if you feel like you need to. All right. So you can see we did this straight out of the pot, out of the bottle, with no problems. Okay, it's a little bit of a different ball game with metallic paints than it is with water-based, you know, just like colored acrylics. Okay, so I'm going to get the rest of this model painted up, base coated. I'm not going to be doing anything differently than what you've seen, so you're not going to miss anything. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the rest of this thing painted up, and then we're going to take a look at it. Okay. Okay, now real quick before we continue, I want to show you I've got the model more or less base coated with a single color, but I want to show you what the cape ultimately looks like after just one coat. Okay, so that's one thin coat. Now what we're going to do, and I just wanted to demonstrate this for the sake of being thorough, so we're going to do a second thin coat back here. And it's just like the first one, exactly like the first one, and you want to make sure you hit the whole thing. That's all it is, no big deal. And we'll do this with everything on the model that needs a second coat of paint. And then we'll come through and anything that has a little bit of color spill on it, like over here there's a little bit of brown. A little bit of brown got into the red. We'll just go and we'll do little touch-ups here and there, clean up our color, and then our base coat will be done. And we'll take a look at the result. Okay? Okay, so we've got all of our painting done, all of our base coating anyway. Painting has only really just started. And so you can see everything is blocked in fairly cleanly. You'll notice that the rope on the back here, I left that primer colored, and there is a reason for that, and we'll get to that in the next part of the series. So everything is neatly blocked in, and if you were to stop there, which I would encourage you to go further than this, but if you were to stop there, you would have what we call a tabletop standard paint job. If you had a whole army that looked like this, I don't think anybody would complain. It looks pretty good from a distance. There's a whole lot more you can do. But if you're new to painting and you got that much done, I think you'd have something to really be proud of there. So that is going to be our entire instructional on base coating. It's pretty simple once you have everything else, like the thinning and everything down. Base coating is pretty easy. If you tune into our next tutorial, we'll be talking about washes, how to use those, and what they're for. And we'll see you on the next one. Get out there, slay the gray, put down some paint, get something going. Love to hear from you. If you have found any use in these videos, if these are doing anything for you, I'd like to hear from you. But on that note, you guys go out there, get some paint done, and have a great day, all right? We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.